Our featured speaker tonight, if you're counting, is the 34th to address this organization. Praised for his uncommonly expressive and detailed performances by the Miami Herald, and described as an eloquent and decisive conductor by the Wall Street Journal, Stephen Jarvi is recognized as one of America's fastest rising conductors with an equal passion for the concert hall and the opera house. Maestro Jarvi is the resident conductor of the St. Louis Symphony, music director of Winter Opera St. Louis, and the music director of the St. Louis Symphony Youth Orchestra. Formerly the associate conductor of the Kansas City Symphony, he won the Bruno Walter Memorial Foundation Award in 2009. He came to the Kansas City Symphony after several years as the conducting fellow with Michael Tilson Thomas, and the New World Symphony in Miami Beach, as an associate conductor for the New York City Opera at Lincoln Center, and as the apprentice conductor with the Washington National Opera at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. As the resident conductor of the St. Louis Symphony, Maestro Jarvi will lead a wide range of events, including Live at Powell Hall concert series, family and educational concerts, holiday celebration concerts, and other selected classical events. He will also conduct the St. Louis Symphony Youth Orchestra and assist music director David Robertson. Born in Grand Haven, Michigan, Maestro Jarvi holds a bachelor's degree in music theory from the University of Michigan, where he studied with Kenneth Keisler, Martin Katz, and Jerry Blackstone, along with a master's in orchestral conducting from the Peabody Institute of the Johns Hopkins University, where he studied with the legendary conducting pedagogue Gustav Meyer. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome, please, for Maestro Stephen Jarvi.
Thank you, everybody. That introduction makes me feel so old. I'm going to do this here. A little tech. Great. So, you know, I was thinking about what I was going to say to you guys today, and I know that you're all not necessarily musicians, and I thought, what are these people going to really care about, like music? But maybe just me telling you a little bit about how I followed my dream can inspire you to follow your dream a little bit. And I was thinking, you know, how can I talk to them about leadership? Because you're I'm sure you're all, if you're here in this room, you're already amazing leaders, and you're learning to grow those skills. I had no idea I was a leader, and I currently constantly question my leadership skills. But it's perfect that the concept of always growing came up in this introduction, because that's what being a real leader and seeking out what you really care about in life is really about. It usually is about having an insatiable urge to know more, to be better. I mean, if we talk about like star athletes, do you think LeBron James is like, I'm good, like I'm fine, I don't really need to be better than like the greatest athlete ever? The whole reason he's the greatest athlete ever is because he's constantly wanting to be better. So I was thinking about leadership today, and I was thinking, if I'm always asking myself, how can I be a better leader, what do I even have to say to them about leadership? But I guess that's it. If you want to be a better leader, or if you want to seek out something in your life, you need to take some risks, and you need to enjoy the fact that sometimes ignorance is bliss, and sometimes you need to enjoy the fact that reality is harsh. So I guess I can tell you a little about myself to start out here. I'm originally from a place called Grand Haven, Michigan. It's a small town on the west side of Michigan. It's just a little vacation town where people come to like get sunburnt for 2.5 months and then return to the wicked cold. And I played the piano from when I was 4 or 5 years old, but nothing fancy. It wasn't like when I was 4 years old, I was like, Mommy, please give me piano lessons. You know, I mean, I just really liked the piano. My grandmother happened to have a piano, and I played the piano a little bit, and I thought that would be a cool thing. And my parents said, okay, when you start kindergarten, then you can start with the piano. And so I was in a small town, and as many of you that maybe have grown up further away and maybe come to a larger place in life, I was kind of a big fish in a small pond because I took piano lessons and I was decent at the piano, and I thought, this is great for me, good for me. All right. But I wanted to be a biomedical engineer. I didn't really realize that being a musician was even an option. I didn't think that was on the menu, per se. So as I went through junior high and high school, the only thing that was really consistent for me was that I was always going home to practice the piano. But I played varsity tennis, and I was very involved in science, and I still thought that maybe someday I would go to Michigan Tech. Why I would want to live in the Upper Peninsula for 4 years of my life is beyond me. Sorry to all of you that are going to go to Michigan Tech. But finally, sometimes life kind of throws you these things, and how you respond to those things lays out the path for the rest of your life. So I was a junior in high school, and I was very, very committed to my high school marching band. And actually, as a freshman in high school, I didn't even get into the big band, right? I didn't get into like the highest band. So filter out like the band geekness of this and just assume to yourself that you didn't get into something you wanted when you were very young, right? So to prove to this guy that I was like, hey, you didn't let me into the top band, I have some talent here, I really want to show you what I can do, I created this little saxophone quintet. And the saxophone quintet, the 5 saxophone player friends of mine, we all went around Western Michigan playing these arrangements that I created and all these things. And one day my band director kind of said like, hey, you're kind of good at, you know, leading this group. You should keep doing that. And they kind of encouraged me to become more of a leader with the band. So I arranged some stuff for the pep band and whatever. So, you know, that kind of simple stuff, right? Let's go blue, right? Nobody? Okay. Good. But so I did all this work musically that was so joyous to me and so easy. It was just, it rolled off my brain, and it was something that I really wanted to study. You know, after I was done doing my homework, I'd study like music theory. I can't believe I'm admitting that in front of this many young men. You can beat me up later. So I was very interested in this, and then something happened in my life. An intersection came. And that intersection, unfortunately, came in the form of tragedy. My high school band director's son was a police officer, and he was shot and killed in the line of duty. So in my small little town of about 40,000 people, this gentleman pulled over somebody, and they had a taillight out, and they had just coincidentally escaped from the local tiny little, you know, we'll arrest you for being on the beach at the wrong time jail. So this gentleman passed away, and it was very hard for my band director, and he was sort of a local hero. He was like I don't know, the Friday Night Lights coach or something. He was the guy that had always been in the community sticking up for the arts and sticking up for the marching band, and he had played football and marched in the marching band at Michigan State. And I won't hold that against him as a Michigan grad, but I really respected this guy, and he decided that he needed to retire. And nobody was really doing anything. I was really emotional about this. I thought, this guy has been such an inspiration for me. He was the kind of band director that was like, all right, and by the way, this weekend, I need some people to rake my leaves. And literally, like, every hand in the band would go up. It's like, I'll rake your leaves, Mr. Flayhive. Oh my goodness, you're such an awesome guy. It was like working for Clint Eastwood for the afternoon. So, I mean, he was, I'm not saying this was personality plus, but I was many people were inspired by him. So nobody was doing anything, and I sent out these pages to all of his alumni, and they signed them and sent them back, very like Mr. Holland's Opus before that movie came out, by the way, style. And then at his final concert, when he decided to retire, I gave a little speech and presented him this book, and then I said, oh, we have a piece of music that we've prepared for you, and I conducted a piece of music. And again, maybe 2 years ago, somebody had said to me, if you could do anything in the world, what would it be? And I said, oh, you know, it would be pretty fun to conduct all those Boston Pops concerts, you know, like all those, like Star Wars and all that stuff. So back in the back of my mind, yes, maybe I wanted to be a conductor, but really I was just doing this because nobody else was doing anything. And At the end of that concert, somebody walked up to me and said, "Hi, I'm so-and-so, and I'm a conductor, and have you ever thought about doing that?" And I was like, "You can do that?" I didn't realize that being a conductor was an option for me. I thought I could be a band director, I could teach the piano, because I grew up in a small town, right? I only had known my band director, my piano teacher, a couple of the people that were like, "Don't go into music, it's terrible, don't do it. Just don't." Because it's really hard. Actually, the percentages for professional musicians, just to put this into context, it's very similar to the NBA, so my LeBron James comparison is not completely off. But a lot of people play in high school, right? Like a lot of people play high school ball. Then some people play in college, and nobody plays in the pros. Like getting into the NBA from even college is so hard, right? And for professional musicians, it's the same thing. We just had an audition at the St. Louis Symphony for second violin. Like 240 of the greatest violinists in the world auditioned. And they all play the same thing perfectly, and they get into this incredible ensemble. But I really had just never thought about the concept of what I wanted wanted to do was realistic. And that's kind of the first note that I want to touch on today. Note. Pun? But it's the idea that no matter what your idea of what you want to do for a living is, it's not stupid. Because I can even remember my friend from high school being like, "What are you going to do, teach piano lessons?" And I would love to teach piano lessons all day. That'd be amazing. I loved my piano teacher. But he was so kind of disrespectful of the notion of my passion. Don't let anybody put your passion down. Because you know what? My passion has let me see the entire world, and now I get to talk to you guys. And I've lived in like 7 major cities, and that guy is waiting tables back in my hometown. I go there just to get a burger from him sometimes. So at this point in my life, somebody presented to me the notion of living my dream when I didn't even really know that that was how you live your dream. And from that moment forward, I talked to my other band director, and I said, "You know, this guy says that I have talent in, swinging my hands and making no sound for a living, which just seems like lunacy. If an aliens came down and saw what I was doing on stage at Powell Hall, they'd be like, 'I see what these musicians are doing, but what is the crazy person up there doing?'" I don't know why the alien has a Russian accent, but it's kind of crazy to think like, yeah, I want to be a guy that stands with hands and says, "Play," whatever. But somebody said, if you really want to do this, you need to commit 100% of your life to this. If you have any sense of doubt. And my dad was a sports writer, so thus more sports analogies. And he was basically saying, if you don't want to play quarterback for the winning team of the Super Bowl, don't do it, because it's your entire life. You just dive into this whole thing. So I did. I dove in anyways, much to the chagrin of my piano teacher, who was, again, cautious of this idea of being a professional. And I went to the University of Michigan, a fine school, go Blue, and coincidentally, they had a great conducting program. So I went and I knocked on every door, and I said, "I want to be a conductor." And they were like, "Oh, good for you. That's nice. Anyways, if you want to be a conductor, well, you should do these things, young man, pat, pat, pat." And then 6 months later, I'd come back to all those doors, and I'd knock on them again and say, "I did what you said. Now what do I do?" And they'd say, "I can't believe you're back, conductor." So I guess that brings me to my next kind of like point is, not only is your dream not silly, but people are going to continue to tell you it's silly, so you need to be a little tenacious. You can't be annoying. That's a nice thing to talk about in this speech also. There's a difference between just being like, "Hello, hello, hello," and politely saying, "I'd love to speak to you about my future." So if you can develop some sort of kind of social skill, I'm going to let you take that. But I'm not encouraging you just to go to everybody that you think has a cool job and be like, "How'd you do that? How'd you do that? How did you do that? How?" Though that's kind of what I did. And I only say that because I maybe might have overdone it a little bit. But I literally went to everybody at the University of Michigan campus and said, "How can I do what I want to do as like a dream? Like, no holds barred, what do I have to do?" And after 4 years of that university, I graduated, and I had interacted with a lot of incredible people. And while I was there, I was really going to see every concert I could. Just like if I was going to be a professional athlete, I would go and see every game I could. And if I was going to be a scientist, I would go and see every research facility I could. I don't know. You know, if I was an engineer, I'd go to construction sites. I don't know. I'm a musician, people. But you need to seek out the things that people are actually doing in your field that you want to do. But I irresponsibly drove to New York kind of through the night, one night with a friend of mine, to see a concert with a famous pianist named Evgeny Kissin, Russian pianist. He played like for, I don't know, Soviet people when he was 13, and he was very, very famous, whatever. And I said, I want to hear that guy play this amazing concerto with the New York Philharmonic. We should drive to New York from Michigan and check that out. So we did, and we drove. My friend Laura and I drove through the night and stayed in some terrible place in New Jersey that is a completely separate speech. Don't stay in Teaneck, New Jersey. And we went into the New York Philharmonic and we said, we're so excited to see this concert. This is going to change our lives. It's going to, you know, expand the limits of our musicianship, right? And they said, oh, that concert's sold out. And we said, oh my goodness, that's crazy. We just drove here all these hours or whatever. And long story short, we basically, a nice lady named Sarah behind the counter gave us tickets that were cancellation tickets to that performance. She said, oh, you've come so far, whatever. So fast forwarding in my life, I went to the Peabody Conservatory of Music for my master's in conducting, which was kind of always my dream, and there was lots of like crying to my parents, oh my God, I made it, that kind of thing. But I mean, it was an important thing, but we're going to skip forward. And I moved to New York City with $1,000 and no plan. So when I moved to New York City with $1,000 and no plan, I ended up with a temp job at the New York Philharmonic. And the day that I drove, and I ended up with an apartment right behind that place. So the day I drove to New York to see Kurt Masur conduct the New York Philharmonic, I parked at the apartment building that I would live in 5 years later. I went to see a conductor that I would study with 5 years later. Evgeny Kissin came to see one of my concerts like 7 years later. And that lady that gave me those cancellation tickets, when I was temping at the New York Philharmonic, I spoke and I told her that story at her retirement party. So life comes full circle. I mean, all these little things that I thought were such heightened moments in my college life were exactly that. So if there's something that you just can't get out of your mind, if you're like, you know what the coolest thing I ever did was blank. Seeking that out is probably a good thing, because the coolest thing I ever did in my life up to that point was blank. And then years later, somehow I was just led back to that same place. So I'm looking at my clock, thank you. So after moving to New York with $1,000 and no plan and temping at the New York Philharmonic, I got a phone call one day from my kind of operatic hero, Placido Domingo. And Placido Domingo, one of the three tenors, one of the kind of most famous of the operatic voices out there. And he had a position in Washington, D.C., for his young artist program. And this is at a point where I'm literally like living paycheck to paycheck in an apartment that I definitely couldn't afford, right behind where I always wanted to be. So this is the taking a risk part. Parents, cover your ears. Moving to New York with $1,000 and no plan was a great idea, because there was a certain kind of like Darwinian survival of the fittestness that had to happen. And I had a teacher once that said you should spend at least 2 years of your musical life when you're in your 20s in New York City, because then you really start to see your competition. So dive in. Diving into in the opera backstage, we say all sorts of fancy things in opera, and we're not fancy at all, but it just sounds cool because it's in Italian. So people say, oh, have a great show, toi, 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 which is like, good luck, break a leg, whatever. And then people also say, in bocca al lupo, into the mouth of the wolf. And you're supposed to respond, crepi al lupo, I destroy the wolf. And that's the attitude that you sort of have to have going into something that you're passionate about and that isn't necessarily as economically viable as getting a job that just seems easy, seems like the logical solution. I don't want to disparage any jobs because every job is interesting to somebody, I would hope. I don't know, is there jobs that aren't interesting to people? I'm sure there's some, but I can't think of any. But for me, this idea of this is what I'm going to do until it kills me, or at least until I have to come up with another plan because I'm at the end, was actually a really good thing. Just surviving is a good thing. So while I was in New York, I met my wife, and I was lucky enough to start working for Placido Domingo. My audition for him was very strange. I had to fly to Los Angeles and work for him for days upon days without knowing what I was going to conduct. And every day he would say to me, "Steve, I'm going to throw you in, okay?" And this is dead on Placido, by the way. Nobody with the Domingo impersonations? Okay. He would just say every day, "I'm going to throw you in. It's okay, I'm going to throw you in." And for days, I would be waiting on, pins and needles, thinking that my big break was right there. It's very strange. It's like facing a very dangerous intersection, or it's like Frogger or something more advanced video game-wise that you guys know about. Like, suddenly there's just this path that if you make it through, if you get through without any cuts, that things are going to be cool. But if you don't get through, then you're going to have to start maybe over, like, you have to go back to the beginning of the street. So finally, on day 4, Domingo, the Lord of Lords in opera, I'm sorry, this is the guy who just controls the world of opera, basically, was finally like, "Steve, I can't do this, I have no time, and tomorrow maybe, okay?" And I said to him as a joke, I said, "Maestro, I have a whole book of tenor arias here, you could just sing something and we could get this audition over with." And he was like, "Okay." So I had no fear to say to somebody that was basically like the president of the opera nerd United States, do something that would help me out, and then he did, and he gave me a job. It's incredible. What brought me to all of you folks after all of these little music nerd anecdotes, I lived in Washington, D.C., working for Maestro Domingo for several years. I was consistently in New York, but also living in Miami Beach for a couple of years, working for the New World Symphony, which is very fun and hip and cool. It does a lot of kind of concerts with DJs and it's like nightclub music, and I don't know, it's very sweaty and fun. And then I went and worked for the Kansas City Symphony for 4 years, and now I'm here working for the St. Louis Symphony, the St. Louis Symphony Youth Orchestra. The St. Louis Symphony is easily one of the greatest orchestras in the world. Please register that. If you haven't gone, how many of you have gone to see the St. Louis Symphony? Okay, that's good. That's good. That's like half the room. The other half needs to go see the St. Louis Symphony. Okay, it's like, how many of you have gone to see the Cardinals? See those numbers? That's not cool. Because imagine that the Cardinals were winning the World Series, as they should almost, every year. That's what the St. Louis Symphony is like in the playoffs of the game of musical life at all times, okay? We just won a Grammy last year, but, pat on us, and it's an incredible place to go and check out things that will inspire you. But now that I'm here, I get to tell young people all day long that what they do is really important, and that their musical passion is something that's going to lead them through their lives. And I stand by that, because if you know anybody in the St. Louis Youth Orchestra, I bet they're not a schlub. All of those kids are really extraordinary, and I don't know if it's just music that led them there, but I know a lot of people that are involved in music that are pretty extraordinary, so you do the math. But all I can really tell you in terms of where I am now is that I have a slightly childlike attitude towards life, because I'm living the dream of my inner child. So when I was your age, I generalize, I didn't know anything at all. Anything that I knew was literally silly. But you guys are way more advanced than I was, because you live in a major city and you're here listening to cool speakers. I didn't get any speeches like this. So what you can accomplish from here forward is really limitless. And that's really exciting. And I know that in the current economy and the way that life looks. I know I'm not telling you to go out and like find a career in interpretive puppet dance or something, though that could be really interesting. Good, go for it. Find a day job first to get some health insurance or something. But I mean, there's limits, but not really. So I wanted to be a biomedical engineer because I thought that that was something that I would never stop learning. There would always be something to cure. There'd always be science that was unfolding in front of my eyes. And then I realized that that was what my brain really liked. What my brain really liked was the idea of something that never stopped, something that was always moving forward, something that was an everlasting gobstopper of knowledge and fun and passion. And I did feel that way about science, but I felt that way more about music. And even though many people have told me throughout the years that, you know, maybe I should jump with a net, most of the people that I admire the most have always told me to jump without one. So that's what I'm telling you all to do today. Jump without a net, take some risks. And the other concept that I really like to think about is the idea of the mirror in the window. Everything we see, my whole viewpoint of all of you right now, your viewpoint of me, whatever, I'm getting really philosophy major here, okay? Everything we see is our own reality. So when we see our own reality, we can choose to have a clear window of how we see others, and we can choose to have a clear mirror, how we see ourselves. I think a lot of us know people that have a very fogged mirror. They don't see other people clearly. Or maybe they don't see themselves clearly. Or maybe they have a very fogged window where they don't understand other people clearly. The best thing that you can do at this point in your life is unfog that window and unfog that mirror and try to find, I mean, you have the greatest window of your life coming up these college years and whatever, and kind of finding your career, finding your knowledge path. But clearing off that window and seeing what the world really has, the harsh realities of that, nobody makes it to the NBA, yet I'm talking to you right now from Grand Haven, Michigan. Being aware of the harsh realities, but also your skill set within those realities, and then being able to look at yourself clearly. You don't have to judge yourself poorly every day and say, oh, I'm not good enough. I had a teacher that used to say, how do you rank compared to J.S. Bach, 1 to 100? I'd be like, 5. Like, what do you want me to say, lady? He's Johann Sebastian Bach. So it's not about judging yourself harshly, but it's about seeing what your skills are and what your weaknesses are, attacking them and going out into the world and having a good time. Now you're all getting jittery and really excited for Q&A or leaving. So why don't I do the Q&A part of that? I know that my kind of life story is very music-centric and it can be very touchy-feely, but you know, everybody that I spend time with, whether they're an architect or I have a really good friend that works for a backup systems, like he backs up data, but this guy talks about backing up data for hours. He is passionate about backing up data. So whatever your passion is, it doesn't have to be that you want to be a conductor. You can be anything you want to be, okay? But clear that mirror, clear that window. It's going to help. What can I tell you guys? Raise your hand so I don't feel awkward. Go. Good. Okay.
I was going to ask, how many instruments do you play?
I play the piano, the saxophone, the trumpet, and I sing a little bit. So that's what I was actually kind of trained in. But you don't want to hear me play any of those things right now. What else, guys? Anything? Please. How would I describe my overall college experience? Oh, great. That's a great question. So my wife and I talk about this all the time because my wife and I both went to the University of Michigan. And I was presented with the option of having a conservatory experience like I had in grad school, a conservatory of music where you just study with other musicians. I don't recommend this to anyone for their undergrad experience, honestly. The University of Michigan was the greatest thing that ever happened to me because it took me from a small town setting and widened my eyes, but not too fast, and with the guidance of incredible counselors, and they're a yes school. If I can tell you anything when you're seeking out your future colleges and grad school experiences, first of all, throwing a broad net in your undergrad experience is a very good thing. Going to a university that has something to offer in a broad arena of things, and taking a class that is the most uncomfortable thing possible is a great idea. But getting the most universal view of what the world is and what education is great. But going to a yes school is even better. And a yes school is the kind of school that when you go to the dean and you say, I have a great idea about maybe how I can turn my degree into this, and I could do this, and maybe one of my professors agreed that they would spend some extra time with me doing this, that they say, yes, how can we help? A school that's like, we don't really do that here, I'm sorry, you'd have to sign up for 406, and that's the wrong attitude to have in education. If you are an ambitious enough student that you're going in and saying, this microphone doesn't like me, folks. I have an idea of something that's going to take me a step further, and I'm going to take some risks, and I'm going to take responsibility for those risks, but here's my proposal, and the people don't at least perk up, keep interviewing, okay? So my college experience was incredible, because when I went and said, I'm 18 years old and want to be a conductor, they didn't laugh hysterically at me. They said, yeah, okay, let's start. What else, guys?
What's the hardest part of being a conductor?
The hardest part about being a conductor is the management skill side of it. Being a really extraordinary musician, there's a lot of people that are extraordinary musicians at their instrument or in front of a group. They have incredible ears or something. But it's like being a real-time CEO. So imagine that we're sort of like having a board meeting all the time. So whenever I'm in rehearsal, I am trying to encourage to get the instrumentalists to, I'm telling them where and now, how and now, oh wait, where and how now is, okay? So where now is like this, now, that's the beat that we all have to play to. And how now is now like now. Or is now like, no. So I'm trying to explain how and when now is to all these people, and they may not agree with me. They have played this piece 358 times, and they're thinking to themselves, no, now should be no. Why is he doing no? That's ridiculous. I can't believe I'm playing for this moron. Like, that is the hardest part of what I do, is that all those people are incredible musicians, and you have to respect all of their life history. Just like you'd have to respect anybody that has been through like a major athletic plan. Like if you suddenly tell somebody how to, like if you tell a switch hitter, it's like, well, you should put your left foot a little further back there. He's like, I got it. I worked this out. So I don't know. It's very hard when you have so many people in front of you with such a breadth of experience to rise above that and maintain the poise of a leader. And I think the poise of a leader is someone that never loses it, which is a great rule to follow. Don't lose it, because that's just how people will remember you forever. Anyone that sees you lose your temper just is like, I remember I saw that guy lose his temper, man. Terrible. So that you can't lose your temper, and you have to take the high road kind of forever. Like, that's the hardest thing about being a leader, is not giving into the easy temptation of just taking the easy way out. You're the person that people are looking for to take the high road. You're the inspiration point for said high road. Okay? What else, folks? Please. What instrument? I wish I could play the cello. I think the cello looks so cool. When I see people play the cello, like Bjorn Ronheim in our orchestra, I just think they look so cool. And it's got this rich sound, and my fingers are just too small. So, please.
Okay, leading to my question. You said you had to listen to 240 musicians for the second violin. How do you distinguish when they're all that good? I love Yo-Yo Ma. Went to Chicago to hear him play, but truth be told, if I had my back turned and heard some other cellist
Right.
How do you develop that type of fear?
I think it's like anything else. You know how, do you guys ever watch the Olympics? Like when the Olympics come on, by the end, people are all of a sudden like, that's a 9.2. That's definitely that judge, oh, come on. Definitely 9 point. You don't know anything about diving, by the way. You know what I mean? So you suddenly become this expert judge. I think that that's what starts to happen, except you actually do become an expert judge, is as you're experiencing more and more music. So yes, if you listen to musicians back to back all afternoon, I bet you would have an opinion. I bet you'd say, oh, you know what, there's something about that person's playing or their sound that I like better. But as you become more of an expert, first maybe you just become the Olympic telecast expert, but then maybe you become the person that's actually running the telecast, you know what I mean? So when you are first listening to the subtleties that make people better as a player, it can seem like minutia. But then when you're really aware of it, it would just be like saying, oh, that guy didn't run that post route. Like, if he had taken an extra half step, then he would have nailed that pass. So when you come down to these things that are just really at an expert level, you hope you have a team of people that can help you out. And again, it's just like athletics. Like, it really is at the highest kind of level of picking folks out. Please, with that.
What are the performances this year for the Symphony?
The question was about the performances this year for the Symphony. The Symphony is pretty much performing every weekend. We have a wide array of events. The theme of our Symphony season this year is Music Tells the Story. So we have a collaboration with the Shakespeare Festival coming up. Tons of great classical repertoire, pretty much going on every weekend. Some of the other events happening, though, that are really exciting are things like films. Like, I'm conducting Back to the Future, which maybe is not of your generation, but I don't care because it's the best movie ever. Yeah, good. It's good. It's good. Marty McFly. So that's October 30th, 31st, November 1st. There's tons of great events. There's this Legend of Zelda thing that's coming up for all you like gamers. I don't know. There's endless things. But check out St. Louis Symphony, stlsymphony.org for our calendar. Don't just think that it's just snobby, people coming there in white gloves, drinking tea. But we're not doing that, by the way. And Yo-Yo Ma does come to visit us very often. And you know what I have to say about Yo-Yo Ma? And I think you would notice the difference, because that guy is emoting more energy. When Yo-Yo Ma talked to our youth orchestra last year. Well, first of all, they followed him around as if he was Taylor Swift or something. Like, they were just like, hello, hi, Mr. Ma. I mean, they couldn't get close enough to the man. And we were like, okay, guys, we're going to go now. Yo-Yo has to go. And they're like, no, I'm right here. They really wouldn't leave him at all. I thought we were going to have to call security. But what's amazing about him is that he's just emoting so much joy about what he does. And I remember hearing him in master class once say, when somebody coughs or yawns at my performance, I play right at them. So this guy is leaping off the stage almost psychologically to kind of get in your face. If he's not in your face, he feels like he's doing it wrong. So he's a really extraordinary performer. What else, folks? Please. Sorry? My dream orchestra to conduct? I would used to say something like, you already guessed it. I would used to say something like the Berlin Philharmonic or the Vienna Philharmonic or the Royal Concertgebouw, which are all great European orchestras. Honestly, the orchestra I like conducting is this orchestra. And I know I'm supposed to say that because people pay me to say that, but honestly, you just have no idea. It's like, again, I'm just going to stick with the sports thing today, guys. It's like being on a team where you really get along with everybody. And the environment is, let's invite this next player into our team, and they are safe because we invited them into our family. So the St. Louis Symphony is really a family, and honestly, I'm not going to name names, but I've been out there with many an orchestra, and there are many orchestras that are unhappy with what they do with their lives, and they're very mad at their boss. And sometimes you feel that heat, and this is a group that says, yes, and how can it be better, as opposed to, well, and I think, and oh. It's exhausting to have that. What this group says, yes, how can we make it better? And They're just the greatest Please, please hear the St. Louis Symphony. Just one time. I promise you it will blow your mind. What else, folks? Please.
Who are your favorite musicians or composers?
My favorite musicians or composers? Well, I was really inspired by a conductor named Claudio Abbado when I was a kid, and he actually was kind of a weird little key in my life, because I was clearing my window in my mirror a little bit, right? Like, I was trying to figure out what the classical music world was like. So I was like the production guy that drove the artists around in college. So if Yo-Yo Ma was flying into Detroit Airport to go play in Ann Arbor at University of Michigan, he was stuck in a car with me for 40 minutes. And that gave me a lot of kind of opportunity to spend some time with my heroes. But Claudio Abbado, who was the music director of Vienna Philharmonic, La Scala, Berlin Philharmonic, he came to Ann Arbor, and he was very, very shy. And at the end of the performance, which the university had paid it was like 250 grand, like for 2 performances. It was insane. This guy was making $50,000 a night, and we asked him to go to a party, and he was like, no, I can't go to the party. I said, please, come on, we need to get you to this party. I promise I'm just going to stick you in the corner. You can talk to some old friends, whatever. And after 2.5 days of standing next to this man praying that he would pay attention to my questions or whatever, he finally he actually asked me if he could smoke a cigar. And I asked the president of the University of Michigan, which is a surreal thing to say now at this point in my life. I said, can Claudio Abbado smoke a cigar in your house? And he said, Claudio Abbado can smoke anything he wants in my house. And so I went back and I said, Maestro Abbado, feel free. And then he said, take a seat. And for 2 hours, my hero talked to me about music and my life and his life and what I should do next. And at the end, and I noticed the university president kind of taking, like, who's that kid talking to the maestro? But he had been, this conductor basically said, I'm not going to teach you, I don't really teach, but you should come and you should study with me in the Berlin Philharmonic. And if I didn't have that on my kind of credentials, quote unquote, when I was 21 years old, nobody would have taken me seriously. So this man, just by tenaciously being by his side and saying, you're my hero, I'm not going to bug you, but I'm sort of going to bug you, I just fell into the biggest roller coaster that's ended me here. It's pretty crazy. I think I have to wrap up, guys. Do I have to? No? Oh, okay. Well, fine. Please, ask on. In the back, please. Yes, this is true. I'm up for music director of Knoxville Symphony, he's talking about. Yeah, I think, I've been up for these situations of music director in several cities before, and you're really looking for the kind of right marriage of what a city is looking for and what you can provide. And sometimes those marriages don't seem logical, and then they end up being really logical, like David Robertson in the St. Louis Symphony. When he first came here, everybody was like, what's all this crazy music? And now people are like, bring us some more awesome, crazy music, because they learned to trust his incredible taste. So I don't know. All I can really do, and all I can do that pertains to all of these people in front of me, is present a really sincere product. Because if I am constantly improving my product and I'm presenting it to people in a sincere fashion and they don't choose to purchase that product, that just means that maybe they like Jaguars instead of Mercedes, Like, they still have great taste in cars. They just didn't buy mine. So that's another thing. I used to have a drawer. In grad school, I had this incredibly deep drawer of rejection letters from, like, conservatories and all these places and stuff. I like to pull those letters out now when I go and do speeches at those places. But it's amazing the rejection. Like, you have to go through so much rejection. I have a lot of friends that do Broadway stuff and film stuff, and it's just like humiliating. I mean, on Broadway, there's a situation called being typed out, where you just stand up in a line, and before you say, sing, or do anything, people are just like, no, 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 because you don't look the type. So it is incredibly hard. There's endless stories. Michael Jordan didn't get on his high school basketball team, blah, blah, blah. There's endless stories of these people that have kind of, quote unquote, failed, but they didn't stop. That's why they're successful. And I go to I really like art. So I was at the Tate Modern Museum in London one time. And I went into a room, and it had a big window glass thing with like fake water in it and a basketball, and like that was it. And then on the other side of the room was a lobster phone. There was a lobster on top of a phone. And I was like, it was Andy Warhol's lobster phone. And I thought, this is ridiculous. I could have put a lobster on the phone, but I didn't. So, who wins? What else, folks? We're getting deep here with Warhol. Everybody, please. Yeah. The question was about, I perform a lot of classical music, but do I perform jazz? At the Symphony, again, like part of being a conductor in the 21st century is knowing a little bit more about other musical styles. So I've done everything from house and hip-hop music with tracks and DJs to Sinatra tunes. Last year we did a big like Sinatra gig with, Fly Me to the Moon, all that stuff. I really like those kind of like jazz standards. We've done Beatles concerts, rock concerts, all sorts of things. So I find it really enjoyable to get to know as much as I can about every genre, even if that means that I'm analyzing Kanye West beats or Taylor Swift lyrics or something, I don't know. She's got bad blood. Okay. Beat me up afterwards. I told you can beat me up afterwards. Go ahead. Take on the nerd. What else? Am I losing them, teachers? Okay. What else can I tell you guys? Just, please. That's the thing is like, I tell these stories a lot about like how I came to where I am in life, and yeah, I guess it was sort of the moment when I had to like kind of step up and do something at my high school for my band director, but it's not really that, and it's not about. I always thought that there would be this sense of arrival, right? I think that everybody feels that way. That when you're your age, you look at your parents and you think like, all right, they got it figured out. Like you think the questions are probably less. They probably have more answers than they do questions. The truth is, as you get older, you just have more questions. The answers make it interesting, but in that vein, there is no such thing as making it. And so every time that I've thought like, I'm conducting the St. Louis Symphony, oh my gosh, and I'm crying, and oh my gosh, this is the greatest moment of my life. And then, your kid is born, and then there is no one, I think it's dangerous to aim, I think in a YouTube culture, it's very tempting to always thinking about this one cumulative point in your life. Because then, like if you did throw like the winning touchdown at your final senior game, and the cheerleaders put you on their shoulders, and they put your number in the gym wall, whatever it is, if you live in that moment forever, you're gonna end up serving me drinks at an apartment someday. Like really, like you can't just stay in that moment. That success is something that you have to take that energy and move forward with. It's like surfing. Like if you get the motion of the wave behind you, you have to ride that wave. If you're just like, this wave's awesome, it already blew you over. So if you're patting yourself on the back, you're kind of doing it wrong. What else? You've asked so many good questions. Anybody else? You can ask one more good question. Go ahead. Thank you very much. No. Thanks. Oh my God. This is really hard for me. The question was, what's Back to the Future? Back to the Future is it's a film that came out when I was a child. It means a lot to me. Have you heard of Star Wars? Okay, it's like that, but with less toys. Okay. Is there somebody else with a question that doesn't make me feel as old to end? Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. Thanks, guys. Thank you very much. Be good.